All right, shifting gears to, we're talking about,
what you're now doing. Thank you. Thank you, James. Body language, non-verbal communication. We should try to do a bulletin one day and just sign. That's sign language.
But there's sign language and the body language. Two different things.
Well, you're the one who started off on wrong footing.
No. You see, I was in drama, and let me educate you a bit.
Okay.
Yeah?
Tell
There's
us,
something called
James.
gesturing,
Okay.
when you pose, and you, it helps you to say something, announce something, it's almost like when on stage, you can even take an audience to what I'm going to say next, like raise my, so I'm going to say something, or I'm deflated,
Okay.
Education, we can do this another time, for that.
But really, perhaps you should come join this. It seems you have quite some pointers, especially for drama class. Thank you,
Guesswork, pure guesswork.
Pure guesswork.
Let's
I'm sure you'll poke holes into some of what you just said, Derek. Really, that cannot. Maybe it's true. You'll tell us.
Yeah. Well, actually, there was some truth to what he said. What I'd ask everybody is watch James reading the news with the sound turned down. And see if you get the same feeling. How's that?
Whether you feel he's being warm, authoritative,
there you go,
confident, sleepy. Tomorrow, try it.
I hope we can mute Sophia now as she speaks and see if you can get the same feeling.
I look very happy with that laughter. At least enjoying my job.
It's true.
Work.
It's true. Yeah. But it's a serious thing. I mean, a serious conversation.
It is.
I know that I've seen other places where they are trying to analyze what American president is trying to communicate. When he's coming to a press conference and then he holds the podium, with both hands, or when his fists, are both, closed, or when he's, just delivering a speech and his hands, are both, fidgety or something, and it explains different things, and I've seen that's it makes a lot of difference.
It does.
To look at it that way.
Yeah, to be able to understand it so you're conscious in your own self, and also to read other people, because you could be communicating a lot, and so we're going to delve into that to hopefully help you be better in terms of your communication, as far as what you're giving out, the vibe with your body, and also to read other people and understand them. And joining us, Derek Banga, communications consultant, in studio with us, and we'll of course also show you by example here in studio some of those non-verbal communication, what they mean, so that you're very clear and have good understanding whenever you're doing some of these things. And remember, you can call in, be part of the show. We'll not have our numbers on screen, but I will keep reading them to you. You can possibly note them down somewhere and call us at some point in the show if you have a question. 0719 012 590. 0719 012 590 is our number, and you can call us and be part of our conversation this morning. Rick, it's good to see you.
Nice
so now I'm
to see
very
you too,
conscious because I have a feeling that you're going to also be giving examples using me when I do this or whatever. But let's begin with body language. What is it? What are we talking about when you say body language?
Well, here's the thing. It's really important that we understand the importance of body language. There's a famous study that was done by a gentleman called Albert Mehrabian, and some people may have tried to poke holes into it, but really this is something that has stood the test of time, where 55% of our communication is non-verbal, which includes body language. So what our faces are doing, what our hands are doing, how our bodies are positioned.
Yeah.
And if you take that to its sort of logical beginning, imagine we were running on the plains of some country millions of years ago, where perhaps we hadn't developed a language system. The way that our forebearers communicated was through body language. Yeah. Or you may believe we were created by a superior being, but there's some part of our brain that has still remained that way.
Yeah.
Some people call it the reptilian part of our brain. It's responsible for flight or fight, which is which is somewhere in our brain, which reads body language, whether it's subconscious or conscious.
Yeah.
So you've heard the expression, the body never lies.
Yeah, and it speaks louder.
Yes, it does. And that Mehrabian study said that 7% of our communication is really what we actually say. 55% is based on how we interpret what that person is saying. So it's not what you say, it is how you say it. This is really important. So whether you're a CEO, you're an entrepreneur, you're a student, you're a politician, you're an athlete, really how we communicate, because we communicate on a daily basis, says a lot about us.
Okay, so even inadvertently you're communicating. You're not saying anything with your words, but what I'm hearing from you, it's a big percentage of what we are giving out and does impact on how people perceive us as well. You know, do we look confident? And everybody wants to look confident. But very many people, again, don't pay too much attention to that. Let's go through the body, if we may. Begin with the eyes, up here, and the face. What is keen to remember about that?
Well, above all is eye contact.
Yeah.
Eye contact sort of lets somebody know that you're, telling the truth. I mean, the eyes are the window to soul. I think you believe that. If somebody doesn't look in the eye when they're communicating with you, and there may be, a lot of this, there may be cultural nuances. So you may come from a culture where you don't look at people in the eye, or you don't look at older people in the eye, or something like that.
Yeah.
But really, if I don't look you in the eye, it's sort of difficult to gauge the truth or the veracity of what you're saying. And especially in a professional setting, or a setting where perhaps you're in maybe a relationship or something like that, it's really important that there's eye contact. Now, how long that eye contact? That's a matter of debate. There's a window of opportunity, whether it's 5 or 7 seconds. Because if I just looked at you like this, without blinking, that's creepy, right?
Yeah. Yes.
You would be, what is going on with this guy? So there's a little bit, but again, if I talk to you the entire time and I kept looking, and you meet people like that, they're talking to you, but there's something more interesting, or they're on their phones, or they're looking at other parts of, your body.
Shifty eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, looking at other parts of the body, because there are people, and some will say it's because they're shy or whatever. Especially it happens with men and women, and you'll find a man's attention in a, different part. Say here. The whole time I'm talking to you, like, really?
Well, can I defend the man? It's not his fault.
What do you mean it's not his fault?
Listen, honestly, if you're wearing something that's a little bit provocative, again, his brain is hardwired to go like that. Now, of course, there's a little bit of jest in what I'm saying, but honestly speaking, and we're talking about in a professional setting,
right?
Depending on who your audience is, or who you might be having a meeting with, or whatever the case might be, you might want to wear something that is not going to distract people away from that. But having said that, if you do meet somebody whose eye contact is constantly wandering for whatever reason, there are a couple of things that you can do to bring that eye contact back.
Like go down
example,
to the eye contact.
No. The hands.
Yeah.
The hands are actually really important, and we'll talk about this as we move down the body. You can actually draw the person's attention to your hands by doing something. So maybe writing or touching your glasses or something like that. The attention is drawn to hands. Then bring the hands closer to your face or to your eye. That will automatically draw that person's eye contact to you. Short of telling that person, hey, excuse me, my eyes are
I'd be like, excuse me, I'm here, up here. But also some people wonder how to handle situations where you have a panel, say in an interview or a presentation situation. Do I look at one person at a time? Of my eye contact, who do I look at? Is it the main person? There's a chair. Is that where my eye contact is based? Do I look across? Do I find some point in the room to look at?
That's a great question. I'm so glad you asked it.
Yeah.
So very often we'll find ourselves in situations. You mentioned the one where there's an interview panel.
Yeah.
More than one person. Or you may be in a meeting where perhaps you're meeting more than one person. Or you are actually giving a presentation.
Right.
It could be an audience of 200 or 2,000. Where do you look at, or whom do you look at? Well, here's the thing. When it comes to eye contact, everybody deserves that eye contact.
Okay.
So if it's 3 or 4 people, you can do the simple thing. You look at one person, complete a thought looking at that person. Move on to your next thought. Complete that thought looking at other person. In fact, I've known situations where somebody looked and thought they were talking to the decision maker in a meeting. So there were 3 people in a meeting. And he kept looking at that one person in the middle. At the end of the meeting, that one person whom the person thought was a decision maker turned to his 2 colleagues and said, so what do you think about this project or this idea this person won? They said, this guy never looked me in the eye. I don't think we can do business with him.
Wow.
So it's really important that you look at everybody. Now, if you have a larger audience, they're talking about a presentation, again, the old advice used to be perhaps look at a spot above the room. That doesn't work anymore. Pick 1, 2, 3, 4 people from the audience. Focus your attention on them. Now, they should be, well spread around the audience. So maybe someone on your left, someone in the middle, someone on the right. And then look for people perhaps who are giving you positive body language. So they're smiling, they're leaning forward, they're laughing at all your jokes.
Yes.
and talk to them. We live in the 21st century. I say this all the time. Right. It's about creating rapport, emotional connection, and emotional connection comes from looking people in the eye.
In the eye. So very important. Let's go down to the smile, because still up here, you know, it's good to smile. It creates that warm feeling. This person, you know, looks friendly. But I guess it could be overdone, because I'm imagining if you're here and you just and everything, you know, I'd be like, okay, cuckoo. Yeah.
In your toolbox of non-verbal communication, this is a toolbox. So what do you pick out? You picked out eye contact.
Yeah.
The smile is actually even more important than eye contact, believe it or not. Again, going back to this whole thing about this part of our brain which automatically responds to the body language of somebody else. Responding to a smile is the most powerful. It releases endorphins. We feel good about that person. Do you know that people who smile appear more trustworthy, more honest, more knowledgeable? In fact, studies have shown that smiling, and you know, they've seen, for example, they ask, how many times do you think a child will smile during a day? And you'd be surprised, children smile up to 400 times a day. Whereas
and
adults
cry a lot.
Yes, they cry. Whereas as adults, you know, life has hit us and we don't smile a lot. But smiling is one of the most powerful things that you can do, even in what I would call serious situations. What it does, again, it creates that rapport, it creates that connection. It makes the audience want to respond to you in a positive way. But like you said, you don't want to overdo the smile. You want to be a laughing
and there are also
idiot.
situations that you should not smile. I mean, you can appear warm and whatever, and all those things you said, but it's not a smiling situation.
You have to use your best judgment. But, you know, for example, you're in the business of, you know, doing this presentation. First thing you do, as the camera pans back to you after the break, smile. That automatically connects the audience with you. Now, you don't expect to be literally smiling and laughing throughout the interview. But just having that smile at the beginning of a presentation, for example, or the beginning of a meeting, or when you're shaking hands and you meet someone for the first time, it is so powerful that it creates that bond and sets the tone for how the rest of that meeting or the rest of that presentation will go. It is actually something that a lot of people don't use enough. I've also used this statistic in some of the classes that I teach. So there was a study that came out. The top 40 billionaires under the age of 40. It was not a study, it was a research, it was a report. And as you can imagine, you had your usual suspects there, right? All the internet billionaires, the Zuckerbergs of this world, and all, you know. And every single one of those pictures that was released by the press office, obviously of those companies, had them doing what? Smiling. Now, you know, you could say, you know, if you're worth a couple of $1 billion, that's a lot to smile about. But it is very interesting that in terms of putting your image out there, whether it's a picture or something like that, you tend to get more favorable response if you have a picture that is smiling as opposed to a picture that is not smiling.
Not smiling.
So it's powerful body language. And it has to be a genuine smile.
Not
so, you know, it's a genuine smile if you see it reaching the eyes. The eyes might crinkle. That you'll know it's a genuine smile as opposed to a plastic smile.
Keeping going down, shoulders, and a lot of people will, mostly some, feel comfortable slouching. You know, it's just feel like everything has settled down. But that's not quite the way to go.
Right. In fact, Sophia, can we just, before we come down to the shoulder, I want to talk about the angle of the head. And that is in line with what you said with slouching. Because look at this. Head down, not confident. Head up, confident. Head down, not knowledgeable. Head up. So, again, I encourage a lot of people to keep the tilt of the head, to keep that difference in that 3 or 4 inches. Says so much about you in terms of your confidence, your charisma, your credibility. So you have your head literally parallel to the ground. Nose up in the air, because you're better than everybody else.
So not too high and not too low.
But just to show that you're confident, there is something about keeping that angle, as I said, parallel to the ground. And here's another interesting one that I don't know if you know this, but tilting the head. So a lot of people will talk and they tilt the head. Now, in the animal kingdom, do you know that a lot of animals, look at the big cats, for example, so lions, tigers, when the female species is on heat, what it does is that it tilts the head and it exposes the neck the neck is the most vulnerable part of any animal.
Yeah.
There is nothing here. If you expose this, you're opening it up for somebody to rip out the throat. So it tilts the head as a submissive or passive gesture. If you bring that to the human kingdom or human speeches, when somebody is tilting their head as they are speaking, you know, they may, and especially a lot of women will do this, that may come across as passive, as even submissive. It's not a power position, is what I'm saying.
Like...
So again, I encourage a lot of people that I work with to try and keep the head upright when you are talking, especially in a professional type of setting.
Okay.
Now, having said that, when you are listening to words, people tilt their heads because one half of the brain is responsible for music and language, the other half maybe, you know, some other things. And so you tilt your head favoring that part of the brain so that the sound goes in there a little bit better, and it helps you with your comprehension and understanding. Okay. But when you are speaking, especially when you are speaking in a more formal or professional setting, again, my advice is to keep the head upright as opposed to tilting it.
To tilting. Any other up here? Can we go to the shoulders?
We can go down now to the shoulders,
right.
yes.
Yes.
Now, this sort of business where you have, as you said, people are slouching. It's almost as if, I don't know what it is. Is it because we're on our computers all day, or we're, you know, slumped over our
For some,
desks?
it comes naturally, but I guess just doing it over and over again.
Well, number one, I don't think it's very productive health-wise to be slumped. And secondly, you just give the appearance of somebody who is tired, who is not as energetic, and maybe not as productive, and certainly not as confident. So pulling the shoulders back, I always say, pull the shoulders back. You know, a lot of people ask me, you know, for example, in terms of this body language, what is the importance of it? Here's another interesting statistic.
Yeah.
Do you know that taller men, this is something that you will probably relate to.
Yes.
Taller men, and maybe even women, appear more attractive. And there is a bias towards attractiveness. Now, I don't want to maybe get into this.
Yes.
But one of the ways that you can increase your height by even an inch or two is simply by pulling your shoulders back.
Okay.
So literally, we need to sort of adopt this posture. And again, it just comes across as more confident. It also does something else to your own person physiologically. You increase the level of testosterone, you lower the level of cortisol, and it actually makes you more of a better performer. And maybe that's something I'll talk about a little bit more in terms of increasing testosterone, lowering cortisol. So again, pulling the shoulders back.
Always pull them back.
As opposed to down
so
like
whether
this.
at the desk, presentation, wherever you are, keep it that way. Good also for your health as well. The hands. There's a lot with the hands. For presentations, people wonder what to do with the hands. You know, unconsciously somebody will, you know, play with their hair or touch themselves or, you know, claps them. Different things that people will do. What do you do with this?
The hands are so important. Again, if you go back to that sort of evolutionary cycle, millions of years ago, if I was dealing with you on a one-to-one basis or not, and I had my hands hidden, I may have been hiding something, maybe behind my back, like a weapon.
Okay.
And so again, our brains have retained that. When we see the hands, we think the person comes in a spirit of friendliness, approachability. So being able to see the hands is really important. I see a lot of people in professional settings, they'll put their hands in their pockets, they'll put their hands behind their back. I think you come across as a little bit more militant. It's not a good way to communicate.
Okay.
However, having said that, once the hands are on view, what do you do with them? How do you gesture? Well, there's so many things that go into this. I want to talk a little bit more about that testosterone and cortisol thing in terms of hands. So you see a lot of people in a professional setting, standing or sitting, will have their hands together like this. It's natural. I mean, what else do you do with the hands? Put them together and sit and talk like this. This, having your hands together, and studies have been done about this, has been shown to increase that level of cortisol, which is a stress hormone, making you less of a good performer, speaker, presenter, interviewer. Separating the hands increases the level of testosterone, lowers the level of cortisol. So again, I encourage a lot of people, when you're in that setting, to try and avoid keeping your hands touching your limbs, having your limbs touch your hand, having your palms touch your body in a professional setting for extended periods of time. Now listen, you know, you can't spend the entire day like this. Your hands are bound to come together for some point. What you don't want is have extended periods of time where your hands are touching, your limbs are touching, your hands are crossed. So the palms are really important. In fact, they're so important even when it comes to, say, for example, presenting. Palms and hands add credibility. They add emphasis to the words that are coming out of your mouth. So my natural style when I talk is to use my hands. But I've sort of been trained like this. But what I do is my hands lend a little bit more oomph to the words that are coming out of my mouth. I'd find it very difficult for me to talk without using my hands. So as long as you're not overdoing them, I think it's perfectly acceptable to use your hands. I think there are certain hand gestures that are considered more that are better than others, and will, you know, help or enhance a speech or presentation or an interview or that sort of setting. Okay, we'll continue with this conversation in a short while and also show our viewers in terms of handshakes. There you go. You know, what each communicates when your hand is on top of the other, vertical or the other way, and those taps on the back when getting inside a room after handshaking. What does all that say? So that and much more coming up right here on Morning Express. Don't go away. Welcome back to Morning Express. We're glad you're watching. We're talking about body language, non-verbal communications. And I'm standing because we're about to take you through a series of do's and don'ts. I'm with Derek Banger, communications consultant with me in studio. So Derek, several things we need to know when we are standing upright. Let's begin with the handshaking. All right, so we've met. So the handshake, this is the appropriate skin-on-skin contact in a professional setting. All right. A couple of things to notice. Number one is the webbing of your hand should ideally catch the webbing of the other person's hand. In fact, people have said that there is apparently a vein that goes all the way up down here, travels across here. If I do this correctly, I should see your heart beating. So there it is beating. Okay. So you want to do it. Because actually, how do you feel when somebody shakes your hand like this? I hate those light ones, like, you know, like just in and out. Yeah. It says nothing about you. That handshake is a way of telling people, you know, you're confident, you're charismatic, you're credible, as opposed to a weak handshake, which is saying all the opposite things. So it's a way of letting people know the type of individual you are. And also, I can find out a little bit more about you. I get a weak handshake. Sometimes I suspect there is something going on. All right. And that might be an advantage to me in terms of business, certainly. Okay, right. So there's that, and then there are people who will do that. So it shouldn't be too tight as well. Those people, the people who shake your hand, like, ow. After that, you would just like, that was painful. Some people have no manners. Why would you crush the hand of a beautiful lady like you as a man? You've got to be aware that your grip is a little bit stronger. But having said that, Sophia, you as a lady also need to let me as a man know that you deserve to be where you are. So a firmer handshake for a lot of ladies is something that I would encourage. I would certainly encourage that. You're not the Queen of Sheba just to put your hand there and let the other person do all their work. And especially, again, if you're in a sort of professional type of setting, firm handshake always wins the day. Right. Then there's this and turning it. Hello, Derek. How are you doing? Now, that is a classic sign of you telling me that you are the big kahuna. You want to dominate. That is a classic power play. If you turn my hand over, so I might counter by saying, who do you think you are? I might do that. Or I can just keep them, you know, vertical level like this, which says we're on an even playing field. So be aware of that. All right. There's also the one where somebody will do the double-handed clasp. Yes. Now this might come across as perhaps you're being a little bit friendly, but actually this interpretation is somebody again who wants to show you that they are in charge. So how do you counter with that? Give me the double-handed. You can also say yes. So yes, indeed. But really, we're telling each other, oh, really? We're on the same level. So there you go. Okay. And then there's those people with the pats on the back. Take us through those. Okay, so here we go. So if I was to shake your hand now, you pat my hand on the back, and again, good to see you. It might seem you're friendly, but really what you're telling me is that I am in charge over here. All right. Now, so I would either counter like this, or there's some ways where you want the other person to feel that they're important, but you know exactly what is going on. Right. So it's really about recognizing what these different gestures mean when somebody does that, and then countering as you see fit. Yeah, we've seen a lot of that, especially with the heads of states. I was watching a clip, you're telling me you've seen it as well. You know, they shake hands, and especially if they're going into some room and be like, let's go. And, you know, you want that person to get in there first. So all power play. In fact, that is so interesting, especially when it comes to, like you said, heads of state or CEOs, people who are in positions of power. Right. So, for example, if we're going in and I actually lead you into the room, I put my hand on my back, I am the one who is telling you that I am in charge and I want to lead. And so you'll find them jockeying for position. to be the last one into a room.
Okay.
Even in terms of a photo opportunity, which side do you want to be on?
The right.
When you're shaking hands.
Okay.
So this would actually be on the passive or the submissive side.
All right.
If I wanted to show I was more powerful than you, I would have to switch over to this side.
To the other side.
And that would be the power position in terms of a handshake photo opportunity. I am the boss of you. All right, we'll switch back.
Okay.
There you go.
Then there's pretty much when you're standing. So say this is presentation, and here I am. So you recommend hands on the side, but it can get quite uncomfortable.
It is,
Talk throughout 30 minutes.
A lot of people feel, what are these two limbs doing on the side of my hand? Well, here's a couple of things that you can do. I mean, you can gesture as you are speaking, all right? But if you stand like this, you can comfortably stand like this with your hands by your side for, let's say, up to 30 seconds as you're listening. There's other things that are going on. And one of the ways perhaps to counter the fact that your hands are standing here and maybe seem like dead weight is perhaps in terms of now other parts of your body. So for example, separating your legs, for example, rather than having your legs together. And you can put one foot slightly in front of the other. Okay, we talked about the shoulders. So pulling yourself back like that. Now it doesn't seem so uncomfortable when I have my hands here. In fact, this is more of a power position. What I would avoid, crossing of the arms.
This is bad.
Closed body language says, I'm not interested in what you're saying. Not only does it look like you are closed and not open, but you're also increasing the level of cortisol, the stress hormone. Okay. Hands behind the back, again, a little bit too militant. So those are things
Sunday school-ish.
Exactly.
All right. And then there's the swishing and what to do with the legs when standing, especially if you're giving a long presentation. If some people will, you know, settle on one side for a while, then they'll talk, you know, balancing and moving around. So what to do?
It is sometimes a bit uncomfortable. Imagine having to stand like this for a prolonged period of time. And for me, Kenyans cannot stay still. So at some point, you know, people start doing funny things. So again, one foot slightly in front of the other.
In front.
You can actually let your weight rest on one foot like that.
Okay.
It still looks comfortable. It still looks confident. And then when your foot gets tired, you can then transfer the foot over here. Now, you don't want to be dancing back and forth like this, but that sort of posture is one that signifies strength, one that signifies confidence. And again, it's all about open body language as opposed to closed body language. You don't want to contract. You want to show that you're powerful, that you're confident, opening up as opposed to contracting.
All right. Is there any other important one? We have 3 minutes to go on just to sit down and see the sitting.
Let's do the sitting.
And how, again, the legs, to deal with those. Because there's the cross leg and all. Talk to us about that.
We spend most of our day sitting, so you can imagine. Again, studies have shown that sitting with your legs crossed increases that level of cortisol and decreases the level of testosterone. So what you want to do is separate the legs. Again, you don't want to give away too much information, so you can slightly separate them. The other thing is that if you cross your legs for extended periods of time, do you know that you're actually making yourself a candidate for a heart attack? Wow. Studies have shown that. So again, separate the legs slightly. Again, where you position the knees and things like that, the angle, you want to face the person that you are either going to be talking to if you're in a meeting type of situation. And it's really about avoiding positions that are going to make you seem closed and encouraging positions that are going to make you feel open.
Okay. So bottom line, when, you know, whether it's a presentation, you're meeting somebody, it's business, it's school, you always want to come across as confident. Nobody wants to look, though they might be feeling like, oh my God, I want to die, you don't want everybody thinking the same. So what is for you the takeaway for everybody to look confident and also friendly and not over friendly or non-serious?
Okay, you don't want to be too aggressive.
Yeah.
It's a thin line, and don't overthink it. That's the other thing. What I would say is adopting open body language. Internalize exactly what it is that how you want to come across. Maybe some of the things that I've talked about. You catch yourself slumping, simply straighten up. You catch your limbs together, your hands together, simply open up your body language. That's the one thing. Number two, don't overthink the body language.
Okay.
Body language is not about just looking at the legs separately or the hands separately or the face separately. It's a combination of all of those.
Yeah.
It's a combination of all of those. And really, at the end of the day, say to yourself, if that person was meeting me for the first time, how do I want to come across? I want to come across as confident.
As confident.
Yes.
And maybe we should have done that when we were standing, but in greetings, other than the handshakes, we have the Should it be 2 times or 3 times? Because see a lot of people with their heads knocking, you don't know whether to go in for the third one, or it's 2 and 1 is coming, the other one is going back. Can be very uncomfortable.
I don't know the answer to that question, Sophia.
Really?
Is it 2? Is it 3? I've seen so many different combinations. You know, the thing is, here's the thing. Professional setting, avoid it. Otherwise, take your cues. I sometimes do the 2. If I see somebody going in for the 3rd, then I let them go in for the 3rd. I'm always watching the other person to see what they're doing. I take the cues
there's no rule
from
on
the
it.
other person.
I have been in situations where I'm like, okay, and I find it very uncomfortable. So I always, as you said, I'm ready for it. If it's coming,
if they do the 1, if you look at their eyes, go for the 2. Are they ready for the 3? If you see them leaning in, then go for the 3rd.
Okay, yes. So there's no rule on that one?
Not that I know of.
Is there a difference with male body language and female body language?
Yes, there is.
Okay.
So, for example, a lot of women will have gestures that are considered uniquely feminine, touching their hair, maybe playing with their rings and things like that. So again, you have to be aware of that. Are these gestures that are taking away from my confidence, my credibility, my power, and those uniquely feminine gestures? You know, if you're twirling your hair like this, that is a flirting gesture in a professional setting. It takes away from your credibility. Okay. Absolutely. For men, you don't want to be overbearing. Personal space, for example, a lot of men don't know how close is too close.
Yes.
You've got to look, and especially if you're dealing with a lady, you know, observe that personal space, take your cues. If you see that she's feeling uncomfortable because you're a little bit too close, stand back.
Okay, and of course, very important, you've mentioned and alluded to this, there's the professional scene and workplace especially you need to be very conscious of what you're putting out, the vibe, so you don't look like you're being flirtatious, you know, sending the wrong messages, but also it would be nice to get somebody to watch you and maybe tell you if you're trying to get your body language all right, isn't that right? You know, especially if you're doing a presentation.
Fantastic. Have someone film you. Film that presentation, film you if you can during the meeting, and then watch it. Okay. And when you watch it, you will observe yourself. Watch it with the sound turned down, and you'll be very surprised at things that you're doing. See where you can improve, see the gestures that you like, and then how you can improve on it.
For people like James, who I'm sure is watching, and others in the profession, anchoring news presentation, finally, what's important to note in terms of body language?
Well, as a news anchor, you are beamed into our living rooms every day. It's really important that you have the sort of facial gestures as you're reading the teleprompter that show that you are confident and not necessarily reading. Again, what are the appropriate gestures in terms of your hands? I see a lot of anchors, for example, as you're doing right now, but when they're reading, hands down, going across the iPad, running, like that. It's more about connecting with us in the audience. I would rather see your beautiful face, even if you make a few mistakes in terms of what you're reading, as opposed to head down with the iPad that. So really, it's about connecting with the audience, smiling every once in a while, and using powerful, positive body language.
James, I'm sure, has taken that, but he's great. He does that. Derek Banga, thank you very much for joining us. Let's handshake.
There we go, and that's a powerful
you're on
handshake.
our show. Thank you, communications consultant. And you're on Twitter at Derek Banga and Banga double B. In between that, at Derek Banga. You can reach him there for those of you who have asked. And thank you for watching the show today. Body language, nonverbal communication, very important. Impacts how people perceive you. Also good to learn how to read, so you know what people are also trying to communicate to you. But thank you for watching the show today. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a good day.